much happening this week. A bit of a dry news week, a slow news week even, and you wonder what there is to talk about. But fortunately, the fixtures have come out. We've got to feel positive. There's loads to look forward to. First game of the season, Bournemouth away. Surely nothing can go wrong, can it? This is Talk of the Trinity.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Talk of the Trinity podcast. I am Baz Barrett. I am that excited about being back in front. I have dressed up for the occasion, in my claret and blue checkered shirt. My co-host, Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest, is going through his wardrobe of the finest Villa retro wear available to man and woman, and however you identify. We don't discriminate. And speaking of how we also don't discriminate, you can listen and watch us on our many, many channels that we have. I mean, we have so many that we get emails through for confirmation of channels, and we just kind of forget whether we've signed up for them or not, or whether it is spam. But the ones we do know about are our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity. You can go back and watch all of our episodes for the last season. If you're thinking, why would we want to go back and watch what happened last season? That's fine, because we've got a review episode that we put up there a couple of weeks ago, the one where we live streamed it on a Sunday night. That is available for your viewing pleasure on YouTube. So go and check that out, because the audio version is it's a work in progress. We've got our finest technological minds working on trying to get the audio out of the high-tech device that we use to record it on. But the ones that you can listen to on an audio basis, available on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, Google. I had one for Podvine. I don't know if that's real. But Geezer, Deezer, we're out there. We're on FanHub, the app. I mean, pretty much everywhere that you want us to be, and places you don't want us to be, we're there, which funny enough is our tagline for our wedding side of business. But enough of those shenanigans. For more shenanigans, you can go on our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, whereby we are keeping you up to date with all of the Villa goings on during this off season. If there's nothing going on, we put a poll out. If there's something going on, we put a poll out. So there's always plenty going on there, and we do appreciate kind of the interaction, the retweets, the likes, the comments. So go and check us out on there. And we're coming to you today on what is becoming an increasingly special day in the football calendar, because today is the day that the fixtures were released. I mean, if it seems like it was only a couple of weeks ago the season ended, that's because that's true. But put that to the side now, because it's all about next season. We've still got 2 months of, less than 2 months now because of the early starts of the season, until we are doing these games for real. But because they haven't happened yet, we're going to wildly speculate about them. So with that in mind, I am going to consult on one of my aforementioned high-tech devices and read out our first 5 fixtures. And it is a bit of a trip down memory lane, because the first game of the season away at Bournemouth, seem to remember playing away at Bournemouth first day of the season. Can't remember how the rest of the season went. I'm sure it must have gone all right. No ill feelings, bad tidings, kind of having a look at that. Then if jokes aside, we get through, kind of all those in week number 1. Another fixture that always seems to happen in August, always seems to be one of our first home fixtures of the season. I know it was in September last season, but it's always early. Everton at home. Then Palace away. West Ham at home, and then Arsenal away. That is the first 5 fixtures this season. And if you're anything like me, the fixtures that you go for first are the front 5 and the back 5. we'll give you 4 because that's how many are in May, in the last month of the season. So our season ends Wolves away, Spurs at home, Liverpool away, Brighton at home on the last day. So, and enough of me reading out fixtures. I'm going to pass you over to Mr. Trinity himself, Will Forrest. Excited about fixtures day? Was it everything you dreamed of and more when the fixtures dropped at 9 a.m?
I'll be completely honest with you. It was the 19 teams I expected us to play that we were matched up against. So that was a positive. It was a bonus.
Yep.
Playing them twice as well. Expected that also. So, yeah, the 38 games. I mean, I do find it funny how people speculate as to what do you think the first game will be, because I think it's a ridiculous question, isn't it, really? It's like saying, which is your favourite Dalmatian out of all of these 101 over here? You know, you're not going to go for the big uns. You're going to go for one of the smaller ones. That's what you want. Or you can say who you want first game, and you'll be saying, oh, I want Southampton. I want Southampton at home. Why do you want Southampton at home? Because we'll smash them. And then Southampton go and buy Messi, Mbappe, Neymar, you know, you name it. Yep. They go and get them. But it's exciting. It's great. I was driving this morning and I didn't quite catch the fixtures as they came out. It's about 9:10. By that point, Liam from the Qatar Lions had sent them over. I knew we'd send them bang on 9 o'clock. So I deliberately didn't look at my messages until I'd been onto the Villa Twitter page to see the fixtures. And I thought, oh, shit. Straight as the first thing I thought, to be honest with you. Can you remember where you were the last time we played Bournemouth away on the first game of the season? You know, we had Tim Sherwood in his best gilet down on the south coast, leading us to a 1-0 win thanks to Rudy Justed and the other 94 players he brought in. Do you remember where you were and what you're doing and how you felt after the game?
I think I was the short answer is no. I remember.
No.
I remember I was at what obviously our regulators. We have to confirm that 3 o'clock on a Saturday. We definitely were not watching the game live because we were resident in the United Kingdom. But generally speaking, I don't think I was watching the game live, and so I think I was keeping up with updates as they were going in. I've funnily enough, I think in terms of I get stick mainly from you for being negative, Baz. And there's been people who've listened to this podcast long enough to know I've made some great predictions, but I've also made some absolutely terrible ones. And in the Hall of Fame, in terms of terrible predictions I've made, both relate to that season. And arguably that, not quite that game, but that season, I think I went on another podcast before the season started and said, pretty much words to the effect of, there's no chance Villa are going down. I think we'll come mid-table. And also, by the way, Leicester are going down. So those predictions went very, very well. But I remember seeing the result after the first game and thinking, we're going to be all right. You know, in terms of things aren't so bad after all. And then I suppose it's kind of, if you've got a camera looking at the front of the car and you've zoomed in close enough, you might be able to disguise the fact that the back of the car's fallen off and it's kind of gone over the cliff and you've only got 2 wheels, and then eventually the momentum is going to take you into the wall. So that it was sunny. I remember that you know, that's first day of the season's always sunny, isn't it? It's like in terms of so even if it's not true, some games in your mind, it's always sunny. First game of the season, always sunny in your mind. FA Cup final, always sunny in your mind, even if it's not. To a lesser extent, World Cup final, always sunny perhaps. But yeah, that first game of the season, hopes summer's eternal, not spring's eternal. And Bournemouth will certainly bring back some memories in terms of going back there on the South Coast. Obviously, of course, their first game back in the Premier League after their brief diversion into the Championship. Know how that feels in terms of, I think they got back quicker than us, but you know, it's not a competition. But
it is.
Yeah,
It's literally a competition.
I mean, it will be when it starts in terms of, I mean, they might even rank us kind of in an order from 1 to 20 through some arbitrary point system, perhaps. But we touched upon the first game, but just backtracking a little bit, have you noticed how it's become a thing in the last few years? There'd always be a story in a local, I want to say rag. I'm trying to think of another word apart from rag. I can't. So there's a local rag, not naming names, Birmingham Online. They always run a story in the last couple of years about, oh, the fixtures have been leaked. Oh, this is the, kind of the inside kind of story. Always wrong. Yeah. And in the story, it says about, I don't know, this is how clickbait works, but always halfway through the story, it says, oh, we're playing so-and-so, so-and-so. I think Newcastle were in kind of the first 5 of these leaked fixtures. And then halfway through, it says, oh, well, by the way, these are obviously fake because they don't take account for cup games, kind of international breaks, and the dates. So you kind of got that, kind of what it's not up there in terms of the worst things about modern football, but it's pretty annoying in terms of, you're going to get that kind of crap, I suppose, kind of dealing with, and it's never right. But I suppose in terms of, people always look in terms of the first 5 games to try and get some momentum at the start of the season. We've already had a few signings in the pre-season already, a few outgoings. We'll touch upon them later on in the show. We're anticipating a few more coming in during the course of the summer. Stretching that out to September, Man City, Leicester, Southampton, Man City at home, Leicester away, Southampton away. So those first 8 games, I think they're quite tricky, actually, in terms of a first 8, when the expectation is going to be on the team Europe this year. I think in terms of the expectation of a lot of the fans and of the board will be going for those top 7, top 8 places. Do you think that's a tricky start for those ambitions, and that maybe we might be behind the proverbial 8 ball early on, or do you think it's a perfect blend to get ahead of expectation? And if you get a fast start, then perhaps that will build momentum for the rest of the season.
I think without knowing what Man City, Liverpool and Chelsea's fixtures are, because I haven't looked at those, it's hard to know how many points will be clear of them at the top of the table. So, I mean, it's on paper, those are tricky games. And I think the trickiest ones are probably, we know from last season, playing a newly promoted team away can be a potential banana skin on the opening day. You'd hope, though, that we'd have enough about us to realise the error of our ways this year, even though our manager's different. West Ham, you'd think, would be a tricky one. That's one of the first games I looked for because it's the closest game to my birthday for being at home. For anybody who wants to get me a ticket, feel free. Don't invite my wife after last year. I think when you look at it, as I say, when you look at it on paper, they are tricky games. Even when we play your Arsenal, that will be potentially tricky. But midweek, you also, I mean, you also look at who we brought in. How long are they going to have to adapt to the team's style of play? Will they have a full pre-season? Have they been playing much international football as well? And we can say yes. Kamara has. Coutinho has. Diego Carlos, he hasn't, but maybe he's settling into England a little bit quicker, I'd be hopeful that we'd be in and around mid-table at the very least. And even if we start slowly and gain momentum, and by start slowly, I mean get draws rather than defeats, because last year, getting draws or getting points from games was our Achilles heel, really, wasn't it? We managed a paltry number of draws.
Go hard or go home. Or lose at home. Go hard or lose at home. I suppose maybe it was another one.
It's one of them, turn some of those defeats into draws for next season. And hopefully we will be top half. Top half's where I'll be looking at the moment. I think you can afford to get away with getting 9th or above with the players that we brought in on the proviso of, well, look how well we've done this year and we brought a few of you in. Let Gerrard have another pre-season and bring in even more quality players who will now want to join us because you've joined us and shown how well we can do, and will really challenge for the top 6 then. It's a marathon, isn't it? It's not a sprint. And as much as you and I would fantasize about Aston Villa getting into the top 4, challenging for the championship, and by championship I mean the Premier League title, but challenging for those honours and for silverware, it's probably not going to happen overnight, unfortunately. And I feel really somber saying that, and quite sad. But we'll see. I think the good thing about us is we're still a very unknown quantity because of the players we brought in, because we don't know what formation Gerrard is actually wanting to play. Now that he's brought the players in that he wants, will he go for that 4-3-2-1? Will he stick with 2 up front? Are we going to have a gem in Cameron Archer firing us to glory?
I'm talking about him later.
Well, and rightly so. He's hitting the mark, isn't he, at the moment? But it's one of them. I'm confident. I think the first 8 games, as much as they look bad on paper with the squad that we're building, that we should be fine. And providing we're around that, 12th upwards at that stage, you can't really complain. You can't really complain because players need time to settle.
They do. I'm going to continue the wilder speculation and going to go under overs. First 8 games, give you the opportunity to lift the somber mood or further play to the somber mood. First 8 games, under 12.5 points or over 12.5 points.
I think we will have 24 points.
There we go. Positive will, everybody. We're back.
We'll definitely have over 12.5. I think we'll have over that amount. We'll be on the sort of 15 mark. Man City, I don't expect to get anything there. There'll be another team, or we might only lose 1 game at that point, but we'll get a few draws, along the way. I'm going to go with over. I think that's going to be the start of. It'll be a decent enough start, and I'll be happy with that. I think most Villa fans would be. No one expects us, except for me, to be top of the league after 8 games.
Well, so somebody's got to put in those hard yards, so the rest of us can be in your slipstream of optimism. And that's a sentence I didn't think I was going to utter on air today. But apart from, the first game of the season, the last kind of games of the season, are there any other games that you look out for when the fixtures come out, in terms of either teams who we play or particular dates?
I look for the ones that are close to my birthday, towards the end of August. So I'd like to see who we're at home against to see if I can get a ticket, and if I want to get a ticket, of course I do. I look for close to Jake's birthday as well, which is in the middle of January, to see who we're playing and do we get him a ticket for that game.
Yeah, Leeds at home. Currently 14th.
Yep. So, sitting in the Trinity, obviously, for that one. I have a look to see when the cup games are going to be, more so the League Cup. I like the night games. The last game of the season you obviously look at. But there's only, apart from looking out to see who the Villa are playing, the only team that I'm actually excited about us playing is Nottingham Forest, to be honest with you, because it's been so long. It's a case of, all right, well, when have we got them then? Because they should be good games. They're a decent team, and I appreciate we will do a Premier League predictor at some point when we see more of the transfer activity.
Yep.
But out of all the teams that have come up, I think they're the dark horses. I think they're the ones more likely to do a Brentford than any of the others. That could change depending on signings, but.
Yeah, we'll see if Davis goes over there. But looking out for the Forest games, you only have to remember one number 8, because we played them away on the 8th of October currently, and we played them at home on the 8th of April. currently. So if you get an 8 and keep going through the months, eventually you're going to hit a Forest, which again is another sentence I didn't think I'll be uttering. But in terms of a game I look out for, is kind of around Boxing Day, kind of that Christmas period, mainly because I'm hoping that I won't be doing very much work-wise. And so I'll just be sitting on my sofa doing the proverbial finishing the Christmas leftovers and maybe having an adult beverage or two. But Boxing Day, home game against Liverpool. And that's this season just gone. We had Chelsea at home, we had Liverpool at home. I remember we've had Spurs at home, kind of around that Christmas period. I remember probably one of the worst games of my life I've ever seen was round about Christmas when we had Palace at home, where we lost 1-0 in the last minute. That was
what Gale.
Yep, that was depressing. I mean, that was I think a 3-hour bus journey, utterly wasted. They're the moments you question being a football fan, in terms of you going, what have I done in terms of this? But
there were some good Boxing Day games as well. I can remember 2 against Tottenham.
Yep.
1 where we beat them 2-1. I'm sure it was Boxing Day. It's around that time anyway. Paul McGrath scored in front of the hole.
Yep.
And Dwight York scored an absolutely fantastic weaving goal where he eventually put it across Ian Walker. And then you've got the 4-1 victory where Steve Staunton was ready to take that free kick in front of the old end, and Stan Collymore steamed in out of nowhere and absolutely bent it top corner. I remember because my dad wouldn't let me go. I had to get to East for Boxing Day. I got presents and I got to watch the game. Draper got 2 with his yellow hair, and Collymore got 2 as well.
Yep. Did we beat Everton 4-0 on a Boxing Day, kind of all in that Christmas period? Early 2000s, I seem to have a vague recollection.
Well, I obviously know the answer to that, and I know that you do as well, really. But let's put that out to the fans. Did we beat Everton 4-0 on Boxing Day? Guess the year, and you'll win a prize. No, you won't win a prize. You'll win a prize.
You'll win you'll win our recognition. And if that didn't happen, then my aforementioned drinking on the Boxing Day maybe went a little too far on that particular occasion. But
do you remember Chelsea away on was it Boxing Day or New Year's Eve, and it was 4-4?
It was definitely between Christmas and New Year. I remember we played them away. Yeah. We played them away on New Year's Eve under McLeish, and we won 3-1.
3-1, yeah.
And I remember I was actually at that game, and I remember beforehand Blackburn had played Man United at Old Trafford. I mean, for our younger listeners, this is where Man United were good, so quite a way ago, and they had a magical Scot in charge called not David Moyes, Alex Ferguson, and Blackburn won. It was kind of they had a week whereby they didn't lose a couple of games. I think they came bottom of the league that year, or certainly got relegated. But Blackburn won at Old Trafford. It was 3-1 or 3-2. And funny enough,
Morgan Pedersen, what a player!
And I remember watching that game. It was kind of when I was at Chelsea, thinking, oh yeah, that's funny, isn't it? You know, kind of lightning won't strike twice. And then I remember as soon as Chelsea scored, turned to the person next to me and go, well, that's our afternoon done then. Again, another great prediction that turned out to be wrong. I mean, it was probably I think that was probably the highlight of the McLeish season from what I can remember. Again, drinking may have played a part in terms of definitely under McLeish. I'm trying to block that.
Did that person sat next to you for the second half out of interest?
Well, funnily enough, I think it was because it was New Year's Eve. Usually you get a couple of thousand tickets to Chelsea. I think we'd only sold 900, which is, again, something that probably wouldn't happen nowadays in terms of, I think you got to be on the waiting list to get a ticket in about 20 years, kind of to be away if you're currently now. But yeah, it was kind of sit where you like, kind of in that scenario. So I had a whole block to myself. People would come for a minute and then kind of make their excuses and go off on their merry way kind of after that. But yeah, I mean, I enjoyed it. The Chelsea fans didn't, obviously. I think Villas Boas was in charge of Chelsea on that day. He didn't last very long after that.
Stephen Arden scored, for God's sake.
To be fair, that does mean you deserve the sack. When, especially when it's kind of, hasn't Stephen Ireland come out afterwards and said, I never wanted to play for Villa, I couldn't really be bothered. And so, yeah, when he's banging them in, then, yeah, you're kind of in trouble. But speaking of banging them in, wilder speculation again. Last game of the season, Brighton at home. What will we need to bang the goals in for? Is it going to be to guarantee a European place? Is it to guarantee the coveted 13th place trophy? Or is it going to be anywhere in between or below?
It'll be top half. We'll be comfortably top half, I think, and it'll be a game in which Gerrard turns around to Cameron Archer and says, "Go on then, you've done well this season. Let's shove you up front for this game. You play up front with Ings. Let's see how you do," and he'll score. That's a wild prediction into the future. So put your money on it, obviously.
Yep.
And it'll be one of those nice home occasions where, sorry, Joe, we do quite well and get a night. Last game of the season, there's always a few games where there's stupid results, magical things happen, as we saw, and we're on the receiving end of last season. But, you do your score predictors and you could put 7-4 in a match to, like, Fulham to win 7-4 against Chelsea, and you'd probably be right. It's daft. I think, yeah, I look forward to that. I look for the Brighton games because of Joe, and Everton as well, I suppose, because of Pete and whatnot. Though the only real team, as I say, I look out for is the Villa.
Yeah, I say at time recording, I haven't looked at anybody else's fixtures either. We've been to and fro about it. What I would say in terms of the way the fixtures have split, wilder speculation, the second half of the season in terms of our home game seems a little easier, comparatively speaking, than the first half of the season. I mean, in terms of we got Spurs at home, penultimate home game. But apart from that, I mean, we've got Arsenal at home and Leicester at home in February. Can we throw in Wolves 2nd of January? They're decent. But yeah, I think the rest of it in terms of if we manage to get a bit of a run going in the first half of the season, and they say kind of home form, kind of if that's on top, kind of momentum can really run. Yeah, I mean, we're wildly speculating, and games are probably going to get yanked out of the schedule left, right, and centre, and we're obviously going to go on a massive cup run to the cup final, so that's going to affect our schedule. See, positive Baz, it's rubbing off, but. Yeah, I mean, I think, again, another sentence that you don't think you're going to say at the start of a podcast. But, yeah, I mean, in terms of Brighton at home, a nice one to start with, not to start with, to end with. And speaking of ending with, and through the power of magic, we are going to end our wildless speculation in terms of fixtures, whilst those watching on our YouTube channel have been plunged into darkness by my disappearance gradually. But it's going to be
really worried that you're rubbing one out, to be honest.
Well, I mean, kind of. Yeah, that was a good one. That's why I'm back. Kind of now. In terms of for the break. To move on kind of to the second half of this podcast, where we don't have to speculate because we're going to talk about things that have already happened. And one of those, we've touched upon transfers in previous podcasts. Matt Targett has left Villa since we last recorded, gone to Newcastle. I think fee estimated, confirmed, speculated, round about the region of 15 million, which is roughly what we paid for him, depending on whether you give or take a few £1 million. There was obviously some Twitter activity in terms of Villa obviously tweeting the news, and we gave him a nice sign off, and Targett did some tweets, which obviously, because this is Twitter, angered some people and some people loved it. But in terms of anger and love, where do you fall on the Matt Targett sale?
It's probably the best way to sum that up, to be honest with you. I'm not fussed. Matt Targett, and when he joined, I wasn't. It was like, what? Why? very much, really. It's not an exciting signing. He did very well in the season that we had no fans present in the ground. And I think he's one of those players who let the fans affect him quite a bit. He linked up very well with Jack Grealish. But at the end of the day, we've moved on. We always knew that once Luka Din came in, that he was going to be our first choice left back. Targett didn't want to stick around for the fight. That's fine. And now we're moving on to either, we've got Bassey, Manning, we've got Hickey, who's been linked. We've got a number of players who have been linked with us. I think Sosa's been linked again. So I want players, as I say, who are going to be challenging the first teamers to potentially get into that first 11. And I don't think that Targett would have got past Luka Din anyway. I'd much rather us go after somebody else. I wish him all the best. He scored a couple of good goals for us, some important goals as well. Palace away last year to help with Gerrard coming in, the goal against Leicester in the semi-final, just as important really as Trezeguet's goal, because we needed to establish a lead in the second leg. Yeah, wish him all the best. I hope he does well at Newcastle, and I hope that they finish below us.
Yep. Quite a long way below us, hopefully. And, an interesting kind of addition to the Villa-Newcastle rivalry, if you can call it that, is mainly animosity from the Newcastle side. Funnily enough, us relegating them twice hasn't endeared ourselves to their fan base. And also in terms of now they've got a little bit more money than we have, they're going to no doubt splash that about in all sorts of ways. In terms of, my views on Targett, probably similar to yourself. I mean, in terms of, I think when we brought him, we were trying to establish ourselves in the Premier League, just stay up, really, in terms of that first season. I mean, we had to spend maybe slightly higher on players just because we needed a squad in terms of, and maybe some teams knew that. Yeah. Obviously, his best season was, you mentioned his behind closed doors season, as it were. He was representative of where Villa were when we brought him. And I think he's representative of where Villa are now, that we don't need him. I mean, I say in terms of don't need him, I mean, I think he would have been back up. And in terms of, I don't think it would have pushed him out the door in terms of for a stupidly low fee just to get rid of him. I mean, a part of having a squad is you've got some players who are happy to maybe not play every week. Well, I'm not saying that people, unless you're Scott Carson. I mean, in terms of most players want to play every week, but some players are more happy kind of to play less, kind of a squad role than others. And I think if Targett would have been that type of player, I think we wouldn't have been too fussed, because we know, as you said, Digne would have played every week, and only would have been when Digne was injured that we would have brought in Targett. But I know there's been some criticism of Targett from some Villa fans because he said, I don't want to compete with Digne. Part of me admires the honesty, because I think in terms of to say I don't want to compete with him is a recognition really that he's better than me. So I'm not going to beat that competition. I know some people kind of looked at it on the way of, well, if you're not going to try, then he's not the type of player that you want. But I think it just comes to levels, as I said. I think in terms of a team, bottom half of the Premier League, solid. Most weeks we do a job. In terms of a team looking for the top half of the table, like we are, whether you think that we're quite good enough for top half yet is a different question. But yeah, I don't think he's quite good enough to be first choice in a team looking for European qualification. And as you said, in terms of to improve the squad, you got to improve the backups in inverted commas. You want everybody pushing for a place in that starting 11. You want people to be on their toes. I mean, in terms of, we touched upon it a few times last season, there are a few positions whereby it was felt wasn't really enough of that in terms of the competition. So if you're of a feeling that Targett isn't good enough, then we got our money back, which is, you don't get that too often for these type of transfers. I mean, usually you bring them in for a couple of years and then take a massive write-off, or they really step on the next level and you kind of double, triple your money for the younger player. So, I think basically for a 3-year rental, I don't think you can complain too much. And, kind of in terms of the left back position, and also in terms of the Villa team, we're in a better position than we were when he joined. And he contributed to that. I mean, in terms of we could have an argument about how much in terms of percentage wise was all Matt Targett, but yeah, he was part of it. He was part of the team that kept us up that first season, established ourselves, and kind of. Funnily enough, in terms of this probably is stretching the point a little bit to say to get to a position whereby people like Luca Dim would want to come to Villa. I mean, you'd say that's probably more Gerald, but in terms of he played his part, and so I agree with you. Thanks for the service. Kind of move on, and I think he'll have a similar situation in Newcastle in 2 years' time. I suspect when Newcastle use their petrol money to get higher up the table, then they'll kind of look to upgrade him, and then he'll be going somewhere else. So in terms of I don't have any similar to you, I don't have any strong anti-Target kind of feelings. It's progress, and in terms of you mentioned some of the names there that we've been linked with, Hickey, Souza, for example. Either of them, it's like Matt who. Yeah. But kind of really, and so it's just things evolve, and there's always the younger players looking to replace the more established players. And speaking of the younger players looking to establish themselves in the team, we mentioned him earlier. Cameron Archer's been doing some things for the England under 21 team. Firstly, give a massive shout out to Jacob Ramsey being captain for one of the games. I mean, that's a really big honour, and congratulations to him. But is it like 4 goals in 140 minutes or something like that in terms of his various performances for England over the international period?
Got 5 now, isn't it? I think.
Oh, well, that's the power of live recording. I mean, he's scoring whilst we're talking, but
he's definitely a talent. Preston have seen that last year. Villa fans have seen it. It's quite a nice, heartwarming story, if you like, about Cameron Archer, and the fact that he was a player who was kept around. Villa were very high on Brad Young and Louis Barry, really. And in pre-season, he impressed Dean Smith that much that Dean Smith said, well, let's keep him until the January window at the very least. He obviously got his hat-trick against Barrow, scored against Chelsea as well, got minutes away at Old Trafford. And he's just flourished from there, scored a couple of important goals for Preston, played anywhere across the front three for them. And you've got a clamour of teams after him in regards to West Brom wanting him. Do not go there, Cameron. No. And you've got QPR, apparently. Watford are meant to be in the best position to bring him in on loan. But then there's also talk that if a team offers 15, 20 million, that we'll listen to that. I mean, I'd hope that we wouldn't. No. And that's Twitter talk again. But yeah, he's a type of striker who scores all types of goals, isn't he? And we definitely need somebody who can hit the back of the net a bit more often next year than Ings and Watkins did in the last season. So why not give Archer that chance if you're not going to go and sign someone else? And if you do sign someone else, like a Luis Suarez, who there's still rumours that he may come, those 4 strikers, yeah, not bad. Not bad. You'd be expecting top half with them.
No, and I mean, in terms of, we've speculated before about Archer, whether we keep him, sell him. I will speculate about it again near the time, the start of the season, because as you mentioned there, it is going to be dependent on whether we bring players in. But you mentioned there in terms of links 15, 20 million, maybe we sell him. It's one of those scenarios whereby there's so much excitement about his potential that immediately my reaction was the same as yours hearing those figures. You're like 15, 20 million. I mean, that ridiculous, terrible kind of, the gut reaction. You look at it in terms of hasn't scored in the Premier League, not a single goal. And then you look at it in terms of 20 millions to less. That's his potential. I mean, shown on half a season at Preston, I mean, obviously you mentioned in terms of the games he scored for Villa in the League Cup, obviously highlights his potential there, and now scoring for England under 21s in the fashion that he is. If you're looking purely at numbers, you say 20 million for somebody who's never scored in the Premier League. Take the money, but that's why football is not played just by numbers in terms of eyes, heart, and emotion. Because I think if we sold Cameron Archer for 20 million tomorrow, our Twitter page would explode. Not in a good way, but in terms of 20 million is, kind of what we've done that for. And I'd say in terms of, if you're going to ask me in terms of who would you rather, the answer I should preface, I don't want to lose either of these players if they're both committed to the club. But if you're going to say to me, who would you rather lose, Chukwuemeka or Archer? I'd say Chukwuemeka. I mean, in terms of Archer, for me, I think has that high. I mean, they've both got a high ceiling, I think, if they are allowed to develop and do develop in the right way. But in terms of one of those who I'm thinking I want in 5 years' time, I hope he's still a major contribution. I think he will be a major contributor. It's Archer for me. So hopefully, even if he does end up going on loan again this season, there will be a review of coming back, challenging for a first team place if he's not doing that this season. And just because it's funny, largely, there has been a rumour going around on the Twitter page, which has been debunked, I think. I mean, it said this is not happening, but then, there's still plenty of speculation and time for things to change. But there was a upsetting afternoon at Talk of the Trinity Towers, whereby some rumours were circulating about somebody's favourite centre forward. Now, we're talking about centre forwards with Cameron Archer, Danny Ings. There was a rumour that we were looking to take the money for him, and it was very quickly dispelled. I think in terms of mainly that's because Will was calling every single journalist known to Talk of the Trinity Towers, so two. And the story kind of got out, we can't sell him. And with such force and such velocity that, Stevie G obviously heard us and saying, well, you can't sell him. But, in terms of just so we can get our weekly Danny Ings fix, what price would you take for Danny Ings? Or is, in terms of, we said 20 million, we wouldn't even look at the text message for Cameron Archer. Is there even a figure for Danny Ings that you would consider doing business?
Let's just put it this way. After those rumours came out of Man United wanting him and other teams being linked with him, I paid a visit to a certain somebody up in Merseyside, and Danny isn't going anywhere, No, I wouldn't sell him at the moment. I think he's got a lot to contribute, and that's not just because he's my favourite player at the moment. It's very much a case that, if we can get better than him, then get better than him in to push him on to better himself. Competition's a good thing. We said that many times, but I genuinely believe that Danny Ings is the best striker that we have got, the most complete striker that we've got at the moment. Someone like Cameron Archer would learn a lot from him and playing alongside him and training alongside him, which he probably has done already, and he's probably learned from Watkins as well. But no, I wouldn't sell it. I wouldn't sell him at the moment. Priceless for me, obviously. I think if you can get the right formation and you can get the right supply line to a fit Danny Ings, then he'll bag goals for us. And we've seen that despite the amount of game time that he's played this season, he's contributed an awful lot to the goals that we have scored. I'm sure I sent a picture through to the WhatsApp group the other day, after obsessing over that picture for at least an hour or a day or week or something. And I still think he's got a lot to offer. If I was gonna sell one of the strikers, if I had to sell one to make way for Archer, it would be Ollie Watkins at the moment. Because as I say, I think Ings has got a lot more to offer from a goal scoring point of view. And as much as strikers nowadays are evolving and they've got to work the channels, they've got to get down the line, they've got to be able to make things happen, hold the ball up and set other players up. You don't look for those key attributes over finishing and composure. You get a striker in to finish. You know, you don't want any food left on their plate at the end of the meal. You know what I mean? So for me, I wouldn't sell him, not at the moment. Let's see how he does this season. And I wouldn't sell him then either. But he can retire with us. I wouldn't sell him. I wouldn't even entertain it, mate. Wouldn't entertain it.
No, I say all joking aside, I was surprised the Man United link came out. It's like that. Some transfers you can kind of see happening. That one, again, this may go down as one of my famous predictions. I can't see that United.
If he joins Man United now, you're out.
Well, I think you'll be out. You'll be out on the streets. You know, kind of rioting. I think if he goes
your house rioting.
Well, yeah, I mean, you know, I have to, get my moat kind of fully filled and my arrowmen on the turrets to stop any intrusion.
You think the front of my house is still a state after last year with Tyrone Mings and the defensive midfield rubbish? Not rubbish. I'll put a brick through your window.
Well, there you go. No messing around here. And well,
right on it.
Yeah, straight on there. Well, speaking of tying the threads of tenuous links together, and speaking of being right on it, we talked about strikers, if they stay fit, can score goals. And the question is whether they can stay fit. And strikers who there's been a debate about whether we keep them in the squad or sell them brings me nicely on to Leon Bailey, who scored a goal for his international team. It was a header. It was a nice finish. I don't have much more to say apart from that, but obviously we'll keep an eye on Leon Bailey to see what's going on in terms of his transfer status. And speaking of people who scored nice goals, Matt Cash scored a nice goal for Poland. Speaking of our favourite players, John McGinn did some things for Scotland. I mean, admittedly, I think it was against Armenia, but you know, you can only beat what's put in front of you, unless it's Ireland, and then you can't. But you know, big shout out to our Irish listeners in terms of their demolition of Scotland at home. It was 3-0. Was it from recollection? All I know is I think it was Ireland's first win in the league in the Nations League since about 1978 when it wasn't even in existence. But you know, well done to Ireland for breaking their duck there. And I think in terms of breaking the duck, you know, we broke the duck in terms of our episodes talking about next season's fixtures, because we've been right on it even before those fixtures have been played. Just as they come out, we have given you our wildest speculation and insight and considered insight that we always do. And if you want more of that considered insight and speculation, you can check us out on our Twitter page at Talk Trinity, whereby, as we have alluded to throughout the episode, you can keep up to date with all things Villa, all the latest news in terms of transfers, ingoings, outgoings, wildest rumours about Danny Ings will be deleted by the moderator immediately, no doubt. But you can check out one of our many polls and discussions on there, or if you want to listen back to some old episodes, or just this one again, because you know you've had such a wild time enjoying this one, then you know where to find us there in terms of our Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Google, Geezer, Deezer, Grapevine, Podvine, other places. Seek us out and you will find us in terms of the audio providers. Or if you are enjoying our classic array of shirts that we, well, I mean, I can't claim any credit for my shirts. It's mainly Will in terms of his retro shirts. If you're enjoying the selection and if you want to keep a tally of kind of which shirt is the most popular, because that is another type of poll that no doubt we will run in terms of our Twitter page at some point. But you can check us out on our YouTube page, our YouTube channel, Talk of the Trinity. But Before I pass you over to Mr. Trinity himself for his final thoughts, may I take this opportunity to say another week of Villa news. There'll be plenty more Villa news during the course of the summer. We will be here with you. Thank you very much for listening / watching, or listening and watching. You know, you can multitask. And we will be back with you again soon.
Yeah, just again, a massive thank you, just to reiterate what Baz has said there, for joining us again for this podcast, whether you're listening or whether you're watching. And if you're watching, you're listening as well. So there you go, 2 birds, 1 stone. They said you couldn't multitask. A massive cheers tar, thank you very much. Also, a cheers tar, thank you very much to you, Connor Harahan. Bill, I love you more than you would know. Completely forgot that he's no longer with us. We'll touch upon that in the next episode anyway. And also the Ashley Young rumours. Ashley Young, I said he's going to stay because they haven't done any videos for him. But until next time, I'm Villa till I die. He's Villa till he dies. Make sure that you pencil in those important dates in the season, the 28th of August. Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. Up the Villa.